Hey, well, Drew, thank you so much for joining us with Real Life Church Ministries. And for those that don't know your story, would you just start by telling us kind of where you're from, where you grew up, and of course, where you went to college? That would be
Right.
awesome. So,
Right. Yeah. I'm from the Valley. I went to high school at Campbell Hall in Studio City. Um, my family still lives in Chatsworth. I went to Shepherd of the Hills Church growing up. Ended up going to UCLA to play. I was kind of like the end of that era where they went to the Final Four. And then after my freshman year, I got drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers in 2009. And then yeah, since then I've been in the NBA for I think this is the end of my 11th year. So
and you got drafted by Philly. What position were you taking?
17.
17. Wow, that's
Yeah,
great. That is
not
first round.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, not bad at all. Okay, so tell me about your faith journey. You mentioned you grew up at Shepherd of the Hills. For those of us that were taken to church by our parents, there's a point where it's kind of our parents' faith and we just tag along. What point did it kind of become yours?
I think it was around my second year in the league, so I might have been 19 or 20. Um, Once I got to the NBA, I moved to Philly. I kind of felt alone and by myself. I was the youngest on the team. I was actually the youngest person in the NBA once I got drafted. Um, So it was a different life for me. And I was trying to look for something to kind of hold on to and pick me up. And every morning, um, obviously mom's intuition or whatever it is, but every morning my mom would call me and she'd tell me to read a verse. And most of them were in Psalms, but she'd tell me to, we'd read a verse together and I'd read it to her in the car on the way to work. Since I'm in Philly and she's in California, and she's a school teacher, she wake up early and uh, that would kind of be my morning devotion with my mother. So I'm not even really sure if I've ever told my mom that, but that's kind of where my faith started, or really like I could really like hone in and be like, all right, my relationship started with Christ.
Wow, that's awesome, man. What a gift from your mom there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your marriage. You met your wife at UCLA. Lauren, she played soccer at UCLA. Is that right?
Yeah, she played soccer at UCLA. She played for the national team. She has two gold medals
Wow,
for the Olympics and one gold medal for the World Cup. So
that's
she's the
amazing.
athlete of the family, obviously.
That's right. So you guys got married. Was it after college or during college?
After college, we actually didn't date in college. We
Okay.
got drafted around the same year. So I got drafted first, and then her draft was later in 2009, and we were honestly just friends. Super close, and even when I was going through my struggles of being a professional athlete, she was kind of already a professional athlete because she was in the Olympics in 2008 while she was still in college. So she could relate to the struggle that I was kind of going through. And I kind of feel like that's how it all came about. And from there, just went through the struggle together.
So the biggest struggle, obviously, that you and Lauren went through was her the discovery of a brain tumor that she had. Tell everybody a little bit about that diagnosis and what that did to your relationship and what that did to your faith.
Yeah. Uh, I actually had a camp at Shepherd. I think my family used to host a camp at Shepherd for like a little basketball camp. And during the week of the camp, my wife was feeling a little weird. She had been feeling weird before, but it kind of got to the point where she felt like she needed to get something checked out. And she went and got an MRI done on her brain, and she ended up having a brain tumor while she was 5 months pregnant, which is kind of the the kicker, right? So her being pregnant made it super scary. Her having a tumor is super scary, but I think it came down to um, having a support system, having a community that supported me and also comforted me at the same time, which I know can be hard to comfort somebody who isn't exactly going through it, but just because I didn't have the brain tumor, but to have those thoughts about a loved one being in this position was super hard. So I had a great support system. Mike Pemberthy was one of the guys who was there for most of the time uh, while we're actually at the doctor. He was one of the first people to hold my daughter. So again, I feel like I had a really good support system, a really good group of people around me to kind of get me through this.
Okay, let me ask you this because you're a guy that grew up in a home that valued faith, but certainly valued sports. And I mean, you and your two brothers, you're all in the NBA. That's pretty impressive. And there's a lot of parents out there that are thinking, that's my goal. I want to live vicariously through my kids, or I want to get them to the NBA. And so they're travel teams and they're practicing all the time. And a lot of times, church and faith and relationship with Jesus get put on the back burner. What advice would you give to young parents that are really trying to help their kids with sports, knowing the value of sports in your life, but yet the value of faith was even stronger?
I would say that they should talk to my parents. But how how I viewed how my parents handled the situation was if we couldn't make it to like Sunday service, we would go to Saturday service. Or if we couldn't make it to Saturday, we'd try to make Wednesday. There was always some point in the week where we would try to make church a priority. Um, my parents also, if we weren't committed to sports, they didn't force us to do it. And I feel like that's the biggest part of probably what I'm going to say. Uh, if you didn't want to do it, my parents didn't make you do it. But if you started it, you had to finish it. And I feel like that's the biggest thing in everything that I do and something that I try to instill in my daughter. Now that I look back on it, during it, I didn't even notice it. But now that I look back on it, I felt like it was really, really big. Just to know that I didn't have added pressure from my parents. Uh, Making Christ a priority is huge just because without him, I wouldn't be here. None of us would. There's so many things like injuries or a brain tumor to your wife while she's pregnant with her, while she's pregnant, 5 months pregnant. At that point, if I didn't have them, I know I wouldn't be playing basketball anymore. And um, I just feel like putting that faith first. That's when God rewards you. So uh, yeah, that's kind of my take on I think how my parents viewed us growing up and putting sports um, where that lined up. It was kind of like Christ, family, sports. So
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, man. I'll have your parents on next year. That'd be awesome.
yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna do rapid fire as we wrap up here. I'm gonna throw out random questions. You give me just stream of consciousness, first thought that comes to your mind. You ready to go? Okay. Toughest player that you've had to guard?
Derrick Rose, MVP, Derrick Rose.
Wow. Okay. Toughest player that's guarded you?
Mm. Pat Beverly.
Okay. Is that because he's talking the whole time?
Nah, he's just super aggressive and he's kind of like a gnat. Like he just never stops, never stops. His energy is kind of unmatched. So
Okay. What's more fun, hitting a three-pointer or throwing an alley-oop?
throwing an alley, I play with some freak athletes, so it's crazy to see him just kind of go. And I throw terrible lobs, and just to see him go get it is amazing to me.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank your family for letting you do this, and all the best to you in the season that we hope by the time this airs, you are back underway and playing again. And
Hopefully,
hope you
hopefully.
make the playoffs. But man, I'm a diehard Laker fan, so that'll be hard if you're the 8 seed. So
I used to be. I'm not anymore. for obvious reasons. But thanks, man.
All
Thanks for
right.
having me.
Okay, buddy. Thanks so much.
All right, see you later.